So in Malaysia, did they all have any like plans for mass vaccination?
Soon.
Soon. Okay.
Not sure whether it's compulsory or
Okay.
it's open for, I think, older people first.
Okay.
Singapore, same.
Yeah, Singapore, the elderly already have this started already. Yeah.
Oh,
So I think they are already. I think they're starting the young also. They give a go ahead for the young people. So probably waiting for the letter to come, invite you to the vaccination center.
but they send to individual.
I suppose so. Yeah. Yeah. I haven't received anything, so. Anyway, this is a big hoo-ha because in Singapore they say this vaccination thing is voluntary. But if you do not take the jab, then probably some maybe minus disadvantages. I don't know. Recently, I've attended some talk where there's an panel of doctors. They were talking about traveling, and if even if let's say the whole Singapore is vaccinated, we may not necessarily be able to travel. It depends on the other country whether they allow Singaporeans to enter. Yeah, so a lot of other issues. Okay, so it's 8:30. So if you want, you can start.
Okay, one thing.
Yeah.
Suki Hotu and good evening, everyone. Welcome to the MSBS weekly guided meditation by Phra Goh. Today is the 9th of February 2021. Wishing everyone an early happy Chinese New Year. Skip this decade. We are very fortunate to have with us Maha Adhibalo, popularly known as Phra Goh. Maha was born on July 14, 1985. Maha had his bhikkhu ordination in the Theravada tradition of Thai Dhamma sect at Santi Forest Monastery in Johor, Malaysia in 2008 and spent the first 5-day retreat in various forest monasteries, Malaysia and Thailand. Maha is currently the Vice President of Palelai Buddhist Temple, Singapore. Maha will be leading the homage to the Buddha and taking off the 5 precepts for Buddhists. Now let us compose our minds, put our palms together and welcome Maha. Over to you, Maha.
Okay, thank you, Terence, for the introduction. So we shall start with the opening chant, homage. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. 3 refuges. Buddhang saranang gacchami. Dhammang saranang gacchami. Sanghang saranang gacchami. Dutiyampi Buddhang saranang gacchami. Dutiyampi Dhammang saranang gacchami. Dutiyampi Sanghang saranang gacchami. Tatiyampi Buddhang saranang gacchami. Tatiyampi Dhammang saranang gacchami. Tatiyampi Sanghang saranang gacchami. 5 precepts. Pāṇāṭipāṭā vēramaṇī sikkhapadang samadhiyāmi. Adinādāna vēramaṇī sikkhapadang samadhiyāmi. Kamesu Michachara Veramani Sikkhapadang Samadhiyami Musawada Veramani Sikkhapadang Samadhiyami Suramiraya Majapamadatana Veramani Sikkhapadang Samadhiyami. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Okay, so very good evening to everyone, and again wish all of the participants here early Lunar New Year in advance. I think this a few more days is the Chinese New Year. So today we are going to, I think, the 6th lesson of this Maha Satipatthana Sutta. Yeah, we started from January. So now we continue with this very long discourse. Okay, next. Okay, so we shall jump right in. We've already covered the 3 foundations of mindfulness. Mindfulness of body. Number 1, mindfulness of the feelings. Number 2, and mindfulness of the states of mind. And we've already gone through some of the mindfulness of the Dhamma, mindfulness of phenomena, and the 5 hindrances, the 5 aggregates, and the 6 sense bases. So now we're talking about these 7 factors of awakening. So this is also part of this Dhamma, natural phenomenon, or Ajahn Thanisar would translate mental qualities, right? So I'm going to read out what's it about. But before I read, if you look at the picture on the right, so that is the this Muchalinda, this naga, this snake is called Muchalinda, serpent king. So according to the story, after the Buddha got enlightened, this serpent king sheltered the Buddha from the rain. So it's a symbolic gesture. The artist would portray 7 heads, or depending on the artist, the number of heads. So if it's 7 heads, that represents the 7 factors of awakening, right? So I'm going to read through what is this 7. Okay, there is the case where there being mindfulness as a factor for awakening present within, he discerns that mindfulness as a factor for awakening is present within me. Or there is no mindfulness as a factor of awakening present within, he discerns that mindfulness as a factor for awakening is not present within me. Okay, so this is the first factor, which is mindfulness. I'm going to carry on the second paragraph. He discerns how there is the arising of unarisen mindfulness as a factor of awakening, and he discerns how there is a culmination of development of mindfulness as a factor of awakening once it has arisen. So again, this is part of the right effort. So if you know it's there, then you culminate. That means you perfect it, you maintain, and you develop it further. And if it's not arisen, then you should develop it. So this is the right effort. So you have effort for this first factor, which is mindfulness. And then the same formula is repeated for the remaining factors for awakening. So the second factor is analysis of qualities. So some other translations would call it investigation of the Dhamma. Okay, so again, when we covered all the other 3 foundations of mindfulness so far, we always say mindfulness is always in conjunction with watching the origination and passing away with the phenomenon. So it comes together with investigation of impermanence, right? Using investigation of the Dhamma. So it's together. You cannot say I have mindfulness, but I don't observe impermanence. So it's very hard. So if there's a lack of observation of impermanence, then it's very likely there's a tendency for the mind to stray into circular mindfulness, which we've covered in the first lesson. Circular mindfulness being very careful with what you do, very precise, or having good memory, but doesn't lead to detachment. right? Very good KPI in your things you do in office, but doesn't lead to reduction of greed or hatred. So if a person observes this impermanence long enough, so the third factor is called persistence. Other translations would be called enthusiasm. Yeah, so if a person has persistence, so sometimes if a person, let's say, attend a Dhamma talk, then the lecturer or the speaker will introduce some interesting concept, maybe impermanence, non-self, emptiness. So you just listen to it and think about it for 1 second, right? So there's not much of persistence. So the whole idea is trying to generate this right thought, investigate consistently, continuously. I give an example. This is like, let's say the ancient days, a caveman want to start a fire, right? They have to rub the sticks, right? Rub some dry sticks to produce some heat. Once they see the smoke, and then eventually they have fire. So persistence is like that. You need to continuously rub the sticks until sufficient heat is produced, right? So once the heat is produced, a telltale sign will be rapture. The telltale sign will be rapture if you're doing correctly. So if you never generate enough heat, no rapture, no Dhamma joy, right? So some other translation would call rapture joy. Right? It's a Dhamma joy. So it's not the secular kind of joy, not the kind of joy you have from your senses, not from the things you enjoy seeing, hearing, smelling, and tasting, and whatever, right? But this rapture comes from the reduction of desire. So if a person is persistently thinking of impermanence, investigating impermanence until the mind is so detached, then the rapture will arise, right? So this joy, right? So this rapture varies from very slight, varies in intensity. It can be, very little kind of joy. Some people hardly feel the joy, to very strong joy. So depends on each person's faculty. That means how much mindfulness you have, how much effort you put in, how much concentration you have, right? How much this total, there are 5 faculties, how much concept, how much wisdom, and of course how much faith you have, right? How much conviction you can stay on the path, conviction. Yeah, so all these are the faculties involved. So even if without concentration, this can be done. So like in our routine meditation, we do the Asubha meditation, or sometimes we do the scattered mindfulness, the open awareness kind of meditation without any jhanas, right? It's possible to have these 7 factors of enlightenment, right? Just that maybe the intensity is not that great. So of course, with the higher levels of concentration, then it's, the rapture should be stronger depending on how deep you enter, right? So this is the rapture part. And of course, all these emotions are impermanent as well. You cannot have this rapture for this 24/7. So this rapture, the body produces maybe certain hormones to make you happy. And after some time, the body will develop certain resistance, or maybe this joy will come down. So eventually, there's this thing called serenity. So the mind will settle down and reach serenity, or this thing, some translators call it tranquility. Tranquility, right? So again, when a person has joy, right, you don't expect the person to be having low heart rate and low metabolism. So this one requires lots of persistence, lots of enthusiasm, lots of investigation. So there's a lot of thinking. Lots of thinking is involved, right? The Eightfold Path requires lots of effort and right thoughts, right? So this is at least for Buddhist meditation, if you want to do it correctly. So a lot of times, I think it's a common mistakes for, let's say, the Buddhist meditators. They will tell you, just sit there and do nothing. Sit there and do nothing. This is what we are very good before we sleep, right? Before we sleep, that's what we do. We just do nothing, then we can go and sleep, right? So I give a metaphor or analogy. It's like a person want to exercise. They go to the stadium or they go to the gym. Then they don't run. They don't use the equipment, and they don't lift any weights. then yeah, it's like doing nothing. They just sit, they just go there, stand around or sit around. Then that's what people do in meditation. Same thing. They just sit there, full lotus, but then they don't produce the right thought. They don't do any reps. Right. So it's important to keep on generating as much right thoughts as possible. Right. So the right thoughts will be non-greed, non-hatred, non-delusion. Okay, and once a person has this serenity, right, then you develop concentration. So this concentration is nothing to do with jhanas, right? These 7 factors of awakening, this concentration has nothing to do with jhanas. It's a vipassana kind of samadhi. It's a vipassana kind of samadhi born from impermanence. So if a person contemplate impermanence long enough, the mind settle down, have all this joy and this concentration, and eventually equanimity. Equanimity, right? So if you look at the sequence, it has rapture first, serenity, then concentration. If it were jhanas, then the first level of jhana already has joy and happiness, already has this rapture, right? So it's different. So the whereas vipassana is the other way around. You need to have this rapture and serenity first before you have concentration, right? So it's a different thing altogether. And yeah, and eventually have this equanimity, right? So this equanimity is a more lasting kind of equanimity from compared to the jhanas. If you talk about jhanas, it's still dependent on a restricted mind. You need to restrict the mind and sort of withdraw from the senses. You know, you be so focused on your object and withdraw from the senses to eventually develop certain levels of concentration. Whereas our mind cannot be restricted all the time. If let's say you're looking around, when you're resting, you're walking across the road, you need to look at the traffic, your mind cannot be focused all the time. So the mind has different cognitive function, different modes of operation, right? So this is the long-term solution. You want to talk about long-term concentration, long-term equanimity, it is through insight. But of course, the jhanic kind of concentration helps with not clinging to sensual desires, because without jhanic concentration, right, a person wants to just observe this arising and falling, very easy to get hooked by sensual desire, either greed or hatred. When you worry something, then end up, you want to watch impermanence, cannot end up, you cannot dragged by the dramas and stories of all the worries and all the fantasies and whatever not, right? So this is the problem without concentration. It takes a lot of skill, unless the person practices until there's certain level of vipassana kind of concentration or equanimity, then it's easier for them to observe this without any jhanas. Okay, next. Okay, and this is the repetitive stock formula, the chorus for all the foundations of mindfulness. So they repeat this thing again and again, which shows its importance. It's not that a person experiences these 7 factors of enlightenment, they are enlightened. No, right? In this way, he remains focused internally on mental qualities in and of themselves, or externally on mental qualities in and of themselves. That means your attention can be placed within to investigate this, the mindfulness in the body or within the mind, or externally. That means can be objects outside. Let's say you're looking at a screen, looking somewhere else, also can contemplate on impermanence. Okay, so the second paragraph would be this investigation, or he remains focused on the phenomenon of origination with regard to mental qualities, on the phenomenon of passing away with regard to mental qualities, or on the phenomenon of origination and passing away with regard to mental qualities. So basically, the 7 factors can change. They can change. So let's go back to the previous slide. Okay, so we have the 7 factors. So I give an example how it sort of changed. So basically, it's more like a chain reaction. If let's say you apply the first few factors correctly and consistently, you're mindful of impermanence, investigating of the Dhamma, and you're very enthusiastic, very persistent, very consistent with this investigation of impermanence, then this rapture will arise. So this rapture again is impermanent because it dies off and it changes to serenity. And then this serenity eventually sort of changes to concentration, and then eventually changes to equanimity. That is, if a person is always mindful of impermanence. So what happens if, let's say, maybe a person who is new to this experience, they suddenly, let's say they're very hardworking at first, who is mindful of impermanence, then they experience a rapture. Wow, so nice feeling. Then they forget about impermanence. Then what will happen is the mind will go back to square one. The mind will be back to as though you cling onto this joyful experience, and then desire will arise again, and then this mindfulness is gone, and then this serenity will not proceed, concentration will not proceed, and equanimity will not proceed. Right? So this is the whole idea. So this thing is like a roller coaster, ups and down. Right? So it's not like once a person has rapture, then you can relax. The next day continue and start with serenity. No, it doesn't work like this. It's very fast, thought moment. Once you cling on to any of the states or any of the stage, you lose track of right thought, you lose track of impermanence, or you lose track of loving kindness, then that's it. Gone. Then you have to restart again. So it's very fast changing permanence. Next. Okay, and the last quality or his mindfulness, that there are mental qualities is maintained to the extent of knowledge and remembrance. Okay, so let's say for whatever reason, maybe the mind a bit drowsy, you cannot observe impermanence. Then okay, never mind. You just be patient. Yeah, just be patient. But the whole idea is the mind has to remain independent, unsustained by not clinging to anything in the world. Right. So the whole idea is it doesn't. The end goal. That means the mind has to be independent. Doesn't depend on external factors to be happy. Right. So it doesn't cling on any external factors. Right. This is how a monk, right, remains focused on mental qualities in and of themselves, with reference to the 5 hindrances. Okay, so this is the stock formula on the chorus. Next. Okay, then eventually the last factor of the mindfulness of the Dhamma, so the last point, which is the 4 Noble Truths. So this is back to basics, basic Buddhism, Buddhism 101. So the basic Buddhism is not very basic. Right? Eventually, a person has to be mindful of the 4 Noble Truths. So some people say, oh, okay, this is a beginner's Buddhism. It can be a beginner's Buddhism and also intermediate or veteran Buddhist understanding. Right? So eventually, if a person were to practice right mindfulness to a certain extent, they have to eventually realize the 4 Noble Truths. Right, so this is part of the formula. Okay. Furthermore, the monk remains focused on mental qualities in and of themselves with reference to the 4 Noble Truths. And how does he remain focused on mental qualities in and of themselves? With reference to 4 Noble Truths, this is the case where he discerns as it has come to be that first Noble Truth, this is stress. This is Ajahn Thanissaro's translation, stress. The more common translation would be suffering or dissatisfaction or unsatisfactoriness. Yeah, so the Pali word is dukkha. And the second Noble Truth, this is the origination of stress. And the third Noble Truth, this is the cessation of stress. And the 4th Noble Truth, this is the way leading to the cessation of stress. So total there are 4, right? And the next one. Okay, so now this is the definition. So what is these 4 actually? why are we stressful? Or what is this stress about? How to define stress or how to define suffering? Right? Everyone has different definition. So according to the Buddhist definition, so we have at least 8 points: so birth, aging, decay, death, association with the unbeloved, association with people that you don't like, right? So maybe your colleague you don't like, or some partner you don't like. So when there's lockdown, some people face family abuse and whatever not, right? And separation from the loved one is stressful, right? People that you like get separated from you, right? Like maybe this Chinese New Year you cannot visit people that you like. Not getting what one wants is stressful, right? So you cannot fulfill your plans or dreams, right? Maybe because of this lockdown, you cannot do something that you like, so you get stressful. So in short, the 5 clinging aggregates are stressful. So now Buddhism is very specialized in the stress management, right? So this is the very holistic and ancient approach to solve the stress issues. So actually Buddhism should be, or the Dhamma teaching should get more popular in stressful cities. Okay, next. So again, this is all the theoretical kind of definition. So when I talk about birth, what is birth? Whatever birth, taking birth, descent, coming to be, right? Coming forth, appearance of aggregates, acquisition of sense, spheres, of the various beings, or this or that group of beings, that is called birth. So this one talks about the macro and micro kinds of birth, right? When I talk about appearance of aggregates, right? So when we think of something, there's a new mental formation, right? A new thought, new contact, new forms, new kind of consciousness. When you see something with our eyes, then we change our attention with our ears, right? From seeing to hearing, that is a new set of aggregates. Or using our sense of touch, right? So every time there's 5 aggregates being produced. So this is the micro level of the birth, and there's also this more wider, the metaphysical aspect of birth. They talk about descent, coming to be. Descent. We talk about the last year's series on dependent origination. There's this when there's fertilization taking place in the womb, right? Then there's this process called descent. The Gandhabba comes to the womb, and therefore this sort of rebirth takes place. So it takes place at the cycle on the factor on birth. Okay, and the second point, what is aging? Right, aging, decrepitude, brokenness, graying, wrinkle, decline of life force, weakening of faculties of the various beings in this or that group of beings. This is called aging, very straightforward. Every Chinese New Year, we know we're getting old. Sometimes change, you need to give ang pao, or sometimes your family may receive ang pao. And what is death? Right? Whatever, the ceasing, passing away, breaking up, disappearance, dying, death, completion of time, breaking of aggregates, casting off of the body, interruption in the life faculty, in the various beings, in this or group of beings. That is called death. So basically, again, covers the micro and macro kind of death, similar with birth, right? So when there's birth, there's death. So it can be the passing away of your immediate attention or the immediate sensations, or it can be the passing away of the literal being, right? So this is the birth, aging, and death. Okay, and the next slide. What is sorrow, right? Sorrowing, sadness, inward sorrow, inward sadness of anyone suffering from misfortune, touched by painful thing, that is called sorrow. Of course, I don't have to go through all the definitions: lamentation, crying, grieving, lamentation, all the very negative, depressing things, right? Pain, okay? Experience and bodily pain, bodily discomfort, painful, or pain, discomfort born of bodily contact, that is called pain, right? I remember in one of the meditation sessions, somebody asked me how to overcome pain. So different teachers give different kind of solutions, right? So some maybe more regimental approach would be, if you, let's say you sit and you feel pain, bear with the pain. Don't change your leg, don't change position, don't move and whatever not. May not work for everybody, right? May not work for everybody, because we talk about the 5 hindrances. We have this thing called the greed and aversion. So when there's painful feeling, the natural program of the mind will be aversion, right? So the short-term solution is actually to apply thoughts of loving kindness to overcome this aversion to this pain, right? The long-term solution is a person has to reach anagami, third stage of sainthood, to totally overcome this greed and hatred, right? So the whole idea is to how do you call it? Not to fight this pain with force. I give a classic example. Let's say the Buddha, for instance. There are many occasions mentioned in the scriptures the Buddha has back pain problems. So the Buddha don't insist on just sitting there and fighting the pain, right? After he got enlightened, when he has pain, he also changes position. He switches to maybe lying down, or switches to walking, meditation. Or sometimes when he gives a sermon halfway, then he has pain, then he tells another student to take over the sermon because of his back pain, and he goes and take a rest. So this is the whole idea, from this case study, is to differentiate between responding physically and reacting internally, emotionally. So these are the two things we need to distinguish. So a lot of time people thought to overcome pain, you need to force yourself externally to fight this pain, right? Which is not true, because if you force yourself, what's going on in the mind, right? Is hatred growing, right? Is unwholesome states of mind growing more? So a lot of times people think they overcome pain, they tolerate and they fight until the mind gets tired, and it just sort of settles down by itself. So that is may not how do you call it? May not develop wisdom, right? It's due to maybe physical exhaustion, or it's a natural form of tiredness. May not develop his wisdom unless they contemplate on impermanence, right? The other way, or the more skillful way, is to apply right thought. So if there is excruciating pain, you can, physically you can respond to the physical situation. You can move around, that's fine, right? But what's going on in the mind? Do you maintain mindfulness, right? So this is the main idea. So it is like another analogy. It's like a newcomer, a weak person going to a gym and expect to lift a few hundred kg of weights immediately, right? So this is kind of impossible, kind of or dangerous kind of training. So I still prefer a safe and call it gradual conditioning. So improvement comes step by step. You don't expect to take the last moment before the Buddha got enlightened, follow what the Buddha do, just sit there and swear and not to move from your seat until you get enlightened, right? You must know what the Buddha have been through, for many years of training and learning from many gurus and teachers, and entering different levels of concentration, that is able to do such thing. But if, let's say, you're not that experienced and you want to straight away force yourself to sit in a position, then that is asking for trouble, asking for self-injury. And there's also a mistake. common misconception that concentration is total absorption until you cannot hear anything or totally ignore everything. So this is again is a circular kind of conditioning. I give an example. Sometimes you can see in the news that teenagers they're so maybe a few of them so absorbed into, let's say, playing video games or computer games, they can ignore the meals and ignore everybody, ignore time and space until they get hospitalized. Right. So this is the situation. Or some workaholic, they're so absorbed in the work they forget the sense of time. Right. So they can't even respond to the sound, people calling them, hey, stop work already. Time to knock off from work. They're so absorbed, sometimes they cannot hear you. So this is a physical, a very circular kind of mental state. Nothing to do with spiritual mental state. Can be done with any desire-based activity. Desire-based activity. So again, when reduction of greed and hatred doesn't necessarily mean this kind of absorption. All right, so not just voicing my point of view. So again, so distress is talking more on the mental pain. So pain, talking about physical pain, right? So we've covered at least all the definitions of suffering. All right, so now it's 9:04. I'm going to stop this boring part of the lecture and open the floor for discussion. Any questions and answers? Anyone? I see MK Yong raising the hand. Does MK Yong have any question? You want to type or speak over?
Sorry, Bante, I didn't mistake. I didn't raise up my hand.
Oh, okay. All right. So you pressed by accident. Anyone from the comments on the Facebook?
Yes, Bante, there's one question from Facebook.
Yeah.
Hi, Bante, what does it mean by cessation of stress? May you explain further?
Okay, cessation of stress is basically the cessation of formations that cause the stress. Right. So this cessation can be done by it's basically talking about end goal or nibbana. So when a person sees this greed and hatred and delusion, these desires, then eventually they reach this state of peace called nibbana. So this is the third noble truth, cessation of stress. So hopefully that answers the question. So the Four Noble Truths is another simpler way to recategorize it. Now, the first noble truth is the effect, and second noble truth is the cause. The third, effect cause. So effect means the result. The cause is the one you do, the seed, right? So in order to get suffering, you need the cause, which is the desire or the craving, right? To have this unhappiness or unsatisfactoriness. And likewise, the third noble truth is the end result, the end product. So how to reach this end product? You need the Noble Eightfold Path, which is the fourth noble truth, which is like the practical step. Yeah. Any other questions, Bailey?
No, Bante, that's all.
Okay, so everyone here okay also in the Zoom session. Okay, if there's no issues, then we have a short break, right? You can do a stretching, toilet break, 5 minutes to be back. So now it's 9:07. See you at 9:12. Okay, now it's 9:12 on my clock. We'll see some people are still awake. Shall wait for a little longer. So at this point of time, does anyone have any issues or questions? All right, still blank. Okay, I think we can start first, yeah? Okay, yeah, just nice. Okay, Jen is back. So we shall begin. So we find a comfortable sitting position. Okay, so we're going to start off first with the impurities of the body meditation. We're sort of going to visualize the external parts of the body. So we're going to first visualize the hairs, all the hairs of the head and all the hairs of the body. May they be well and happy. All the hairs from head to toe, wish them well and happy. When you wish your body well and happy, it's actually practicing for Chinese New Year. So you wish your own body first. There are also many organisms staying in the hair, on the hair. So you wish all of them well and happy as well. And so this loving kindness, very, very important. It's akin to like stretching before an exercise. So must have this loving kindness first. Don't straight away jump in to push the mind to focus or push the mind to think on impermanence. You strain your mind, yeah, and got this mental stress, unnecessary strain and suffering. Okay, once we are at peace with the hairs, right? Once you've already wished the hairs well and happy, and you're at least emotionally have friends at peace with the hairs, then we can now introduce the Dhamma, the teaching. And these hairs go through this birth, aging, sickness, and passing away. So now it's the investigation of the impermanence, yeah? Mindful of the hairs. So these hairs, they grow long, they get dirty, oily, sweaty. And they turn gray or turn white. Sometimes have issues like cracks, splits, dandruff. And they eventually fall off. Every day there's lots of hairs falling off. And we have hair growing again and hair falling. So keep observing this growing and falling, mindful of this origination and passing away, or this birth and death of the hairs. And maybe some people, if they've done it correctly, may trigger, these 7 factors of enlightenment. The sign of rubbing the sticks, right, will produce smoke and heat. So maybe this joy may arise, Dhamma joy. And we can ask ourselves, are these hairs truly self? Can we tell the hairs not to go through this birth and death? And the next part of the body, we are going to visualize the nails. All the fingernails and toenails, may they be well and happy. So for those who are drowsy, do not stagnate on one image or one thought for more than 2 seconds. Keep generating this loving kindness. Every time you view a nail, and you just wish it well and happy. And then we can now contemplate on the impermanence of the nails. So the nails go through birth and death. So they grow long, they collect dirt, and they discolor, and they go through wear and tear, scratches, cracks, and they even chip off. Every time you scratch something hard, some of the nails, they drop off. Sometimes cut our nails and then get shorter. So the nails grow and they fall off, grow and fall off. So they constantly go through this birth and death. So when we covered on the 7 factors of enlightenment earlier on the lecture, when we do in practice, please do not attempt to deliberately force or generate this joy or whatever it is. Yeah? It should come naturally. The only thing that we deliberately produce is the thoughts on right thoughts, yeah, on this loving kindness and impermanence. This is the only deliberately effort we need to put in. The rest of them should come naturally. It's a chain reaction. Okay, and the next part of the body, we are going to visualize the teeth, all the teeth inside the mouth. Wish them well and happy. All the upper rows of teeth, may they be well and happy, and all the lower rows of teeth, may they be well and happy. And all these teeth are subject to birth and death. So they change in shape and size. They get dirty and they discolor, or the plaque build up, turn yellowish, and turn brown, turn black, they decay, and they start up tooth cavities, they grow holes, and they get loose and shaky, and eventually they fall off. And we can ask ourselves, are these teeth truly self? Can we tell the teeth not to go through this birth and death? Okay, and the next part of the body, we are going to visualize the skin. We wish all the skin well and happy from head to toe, and skin that surround the whole body. May they be well and happy. Okay, and all the skin are subject to birth, aging, decaying, and death. So they get dirty, oily, sweaty. And they wrinkle up when it's older. Sometimes have various skin problems, like dryness, it will crack and it will turn red, and there's irritation or allergies, maybe rashes, boils, pimples, pus. And eventually the skin will fall off. And the dead skin, every day there's lots of dead skin falling off. So I would keep thinking that the skin keep growing and falling, growing and falling. And maybe for those who are more sensitive, you might try to figure out, what is the shape of this joy. And this joy arise, is there any shape to it? Okay, and then we can move on to the second phase of meditation. So now we are going to, now just sweeping the body, right? We're just going to feel from head to toe. So this time around, no need to visualize. We're just going to feel the various sensations from head to toe. And wish all the entire body well and happy. So you can do it slowly from the head, right? Whatever sensation or change in sensation, right? Then you can wish it well and happy and observe its arising and passing away of that sensation. Then you can extend the area larger, right, to your neck and shoulders. whatever sensation you feel or any change in sensation, right? Any change in the four elements, any hard and soft, any tension, any movements, fast and slow movements, any change in heat. As long as there's a change, then you just wish it well and happy and observe its impermanence. And extend to a bigger area, to your torso and the back region, right? Chest, abdomen. And we're going to reach the hip and legs, right? Contact with the seat, the rest of the feet. All the sensations, we wish it well and happy. And as long as there's a change and sensation, we also observe the arising and passing away. So whatever sort of pleasant experience, do not sort of stop and just hold on to it. Yeah, whole idea is we just treat the pleasant experience as a sideshow. The main emphasis is to generate the right thoughts, yeah, which is impermanence. It's like driving a car. Yeah, you don't stop once you see a signboard and you just immediately stop the acceleration pedal and leave your hands off your steering wheel, right? You still continue driving. Whatever signpost you see, right? You just take note only. So similarly, whatever experience you feel, right? Pleasant or peaceful or unpleasant, whatever it is, it's just signboards. And we continue applying thoughts of impermanence. And we are now going to wish all beings in front well and happy. So as we extend the attention to the front, whatever sensation or whatever change you experience in front, also mindful of impermanence and the heaven loving kindness. And we come back to ourselves. And we are now going to wish all beings behind well and happy. And we come back to ourselves. And we wish all beings on the left well and happy. And we come back to ourselves. And we wish all beings on the right well and happy. And we come back to ourselves. And we wish all beings above well and happy. And we come back to ourselves. And we wish all beings below well and happy. And we come back to ourselves. And then we can sort of zoom into one small area. It can be below the nostril, above the upper lip. And we wish the small spot well and happy. Every change in sensation, every change in the in and out breath, we wish it well and happy and mindful of impermanence. So in any kind of meditation, if there is any tension or stress or strain, that means there is dukkha, there is suffering. So we use the Four Noble Truths as the SOP, troubleshooting guide. So what happens if the stress is because there is desire? We must apply this eightfold path, right? The right thought and the loving kindness or impermanence to reduce this stress. So when the cessation is far enough or deep enough or lowered enough, then these 7 factors of awakening might occur. And now we're going to radiate this loving kindness to all directions, above, below, and all across. Right? We wish all beings in the universe well and happy. So when we deliberately extend the mind, the same thing, any excessive force or pushing will cause stress or tension. So the whole idea is to extend without desire. Always mindful of whatever impermanence you can find in the extended field of attention. And we're going to change our thoughts, right? We're going to wish all beings, may they be free from suffering. So we switch from loving kindness to compassion. Because when there's constant birth and death, lots of suffering, lots of change. Every time rising and passing, Lots of people cling, and lots of people suffer. So to practice compassion correctly without falling into depression, you need to be constantly mindful of impermanence. Yeah? Because we ourselves must detach. If we cling on, oh, there's pain, there's despair, there's sorrow, there's lamentation, then we ourselves get into depression. So using whatever observable evidence, right? Whatever sensation that you can feel that's changed, then remind yourself, oh, this is impermanent. There's rising and falling, there's birth and death. And then we are switching to another immeasurable. Since it's the festive mood coming, then we are going to sort of rejoice, right? We're going to wish everyone all the Chinese New Year kind of greetings and auspiciousness. Wish all beings fulfill their wishes. Wish everyone prosper. Okay, then we change the mode of attention to now freestyle one. That means now there's no need to deliberately extend the mind, or there's no need to deliberately fixate the mind anywhere. So now let the mind autopilot, or let it be scattered all over the place. That means there's no need to control it. So what we do now is sort of real-time contact tracing of the mind or the attention. We just observe how this attention arise and how this attention pass away. So basically, you need to ask, where is my attention now? So this attention can move around through the 6 sense doors: eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, mind. So to easily identify or locate the attention, we can take note of at least the 4 elements, the form, yeah? So the 4 elements will encompass the mind or the attention. So any hard and soft sensation, the mind is there. Any warm and cold sensation, the mind is there. Right? Any fast and slow movements, right? The wind element, the mind is there. And any moist or dry sensation, the mind is there. Right, so the attention, there's 5 aggregates, right? So it's 5 in 1. So when there's form, there's also feeling, whether you like that sensation or don't like that sensation, or you find it neutral. And the 3rd aggregate is perception, right? Whether you give a name to an object, so that is perception. All the terms and jargons you've learned before in the past, right? Some people call it memory. So whatever contact you have through the 6 senses, you'll give a name based on the memory. And mental formation is the karma, the moment thought is being formed. So when you keep observing, where's your attention now, right? That attention arising, that is mental formation. So when the one attention arises and it moves to another attention, yeah, so the in between, the transition, that is the mental formation. And the consciousness is basically the awareness, right? So you can be aware through your eyes, your ears, nose, tongue, body, and mind. So you have to view these 5 aggregates as impermanent. So if you cannot handle all 5, you just handle 1 at a time. No need to deliberately push or change the sensations, right? The whole idea is to observe it naturally, right? You want to see things as they really are, yeah? Understand the mind, or investigate this natural Dhamma. And so the whole idea is whatever mode your mind takes shape in, whatever how extensive the mind is or how restricted the mind, always be mindful of this impermanence, right? So this is the practice of right mindfulness. Okay, and without further ado, now it's 10 o'clock. We can physically conclude the meditation, but mentally we keep on try to maintain this right mindfulness. So we can open our eyes. If we close our eyes and go through formal sitting, there's still 6 sense bases and 5 aggregates. When you open eyes, there is also 6 sense bases and 5 aggregates. So it's about whether we apply right thought or not. Okay, so any problems or questions on the ground? All okay, all peaceful? Any interesting experience? Yes, Jianing, yeah.
Hi, Bante. So how can we apply impermanence to subdue our craving? For example, let's say we are craving for food. Chinese New Year, so many foods, right? For example, Chinese New Year, so many food, right? We are craving for food. How can we use impermanence to subdue the craving? And on the other hand, how can we use loving kindness to subdue aversion to, for example, painful?
Yeah, okay, very good. So this one is, if let's say you're always constantly mindful of impermanence, or let's say you develop some concentration, then if there's equanimity, then you'll be less shaken to, we call it sense desires, nice taste, nice sights, nice smell, and so on. Yeah? So it will come naturally. So the mind is will naturally cling, right? So it's either you cling on the more wholesome thing or the more circular thing, that's all. So it takes time, it's not an overnight kind of thing. So sometimes every day we just go through life, we will know ourselves, what's our highest score, what's our best score. Are we still easily attracted or have desire to certain sense pleasure, or do we still have hatred to certain things? So this over time we can see improvement.
So there is no, we cannot apply it right here, right now.
Okay, if you want to talk about more immediate kind of solution towards food, normally we have this thing called food contemplation. Food contemplation. So the more formal kind of contemplation will be the 4 elements of the food, right? So whatever food you see, they are made of the 4 elements. So it's just changing a perception, applying right thought. So it's the same, you do it to your body, and the same thing to whatever object you see in front of you, to food, to the screen, to your laptop or to your phone, same principle.
But how exactly the impermanence, the thought on impermanence reduce our craving?
Yeah, the whole idea is the more the rate of impermanence, the more change you observe, then it's like the mind will naturally get sick of clinging to it, right? When we think it's real, then the mind will want to invest, want to stay on, want to cling on to that object. But it keeps changing, the mind want to cling, hey, you change again, then you get tired or sick of it. So the mind will naturally, it's sort of detached. Yeah, okay.
About loving kindness on aversion.
Yeah. Yeah, so since this is the festive mood, no, so we wish everyone well, no, wish everyone having happy new year. So we can start off from there, so it helps.
Because last time you said wishing is just reciting, right?
Yeah, correct. Yeah, yeah. So when you wish, then you change the emotion as well.
Do we have to put in effort to change emotion?
Yeah, you have to experience it over time. So the thought will synchronize with the emotion. So sometimes the problem without, let's say, producing the thought, some people think it's emotion. Then if you do it correctly, then that's fine. No? If you are spot on. But if let's say, a person may have this, no, they tend to stray to the indirect enemy. Can be loving kindness contaminated with selfishness, for example, and it becomes personal affection. Also, like the New Year period, a lot of people come to the temple and pray, I wish my family or wish myself successful. So it's, no, there's some tinge of selfishness there. Yeah, it's not wishing all beings. So there's some restrictions, some boundaries. So that kind of emotion is not as noble, not as liberating as the boundless loving kindness. Yeah, so when we wish all beings well happy, yeah, we start off with the thought, then emotionally it will slowly manifest. Okay, all right. No problem. Any other questions from the comments on Facebook? Anything?
No, Bante.
Okay, so everyone wants to knock off already. Okay, so we can end the session if there's no other things. Okay, and then we have the dedication of merits. All right, so Anumodana. Akasata cha bhumata devanaga mahidika punyang tang anumoditva cirang rakatu loka sasanam etavata cha amhihi sampadang punya sampadang sabbe deva sabbe buddha sabbe sata anumodantu sabba sampati siddhya. Transference of merits to departed. Idam minyatina hotu, sukita hotu nyatayo. Idam minyatina hotu, sukita hotu nyatayo. Idam minyatina hotu, sukita hotu nyatayo. Aspiration, imina punya kamena, mame bala samagamo. Satang samagamo hotu yawa nibbana patiya. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Okay, so happy Chinese New Year in advance, and may you all be well and happy.
Okay.
Any announcements from Terence?
Yeah. On the first day of Chinese New Year, there will be a virtual blessing. There will be a Dhamma talk and some puja. So do join us at 10 a.m. So wishing everyone and Bante happy Chinese New Year.
Okay, thank you. Happy Chinese New Year and good night.
Bye.
New Year.
Okay.
Thank you,
New Year.
Bante. Happy New
Bye.
Year, everybody.
Right. Thank you, Bante. Happy New Year.
Okay, no problem. Happy New Year.